So the subject today is sex, love, and relationship. And no matter how spiritual we would like to be, the fact is the large percentage of our life is about love, sex, and relationship, and how much we don't get. How much love we don't get, how much sex we don't get, and how our relationships very rarely work sweetly, beautifully, and without compromise. Now I know, and I'm not asking you to believe me, but I know that it is possible to live with another human being, sexually contacted, without any compromise whatsoever. No argument, no distress, and live very beautifully with another human being. I know that is possible. That's what happens with Grace and I. And we know one other couple that live like that. And out of the thousands and thousands of people we know, because we travel around the world the whole time, we only know one other couple that lives in harmony. Past the honeymoon. The honeymoon doesn't count. The honeymoon works. So let's start there, the honeymoon. For years I've talked about a process that goes on with the human being, and it is just being confirmed scientifically through a number of studies. And it goes like this. So I'm going to give the basis of our sex. And while I'm talking, I'm not expecting you to believe or to agree, but just listen, just in case it feels appropriate for you. So it goes like this. In the womb, you know that we go through many shapes, as though we were a fish, as though we were a monkey, and then we come into a human being, and after we're born, we go on developing, and we develop on many levels. So what I'm suggesting to you, we are part animal. Our lowest basic instinct is animal. And it's animal because we need to reproduce in order to continue as a species. So I'll say that again. We need to reproduce in order to continue as a species. So if we didn't have a reproduction drive, if there wasn't something that drove us to do it, our species may die out because we might get interested in something else. So just to make sure we don't get interested in something else, we're given a very strong sexual feeling, and it's animalistic. There's nothing spiritual about it. There's nothing conscious about it. It's just an energy in our groins that wants to produce an act in order to reproduce our species. So I don't know whether you have this saying in German, but in English there's a saying that says, love is blind. And I'll explain that. You do. Okay. What happens is, whether you know it or not, when you come into a room or you meet people or you walk down the street, you have a sensor that's looking for a partner all the time, except when you're pregnant, and men don't get pregnant, so they have it all the time. And this sensor is, from the animal level, looking for a suitable partner. Now let me explain suitable partner. You have sensors in you that is looking for the most suitable partner to be with, to produce the most suitable offspring. And each of us, having a different system, need a different sort of partner. So without you knowing it, you are continually looking for who is what you call attractive to you. So that's how we interpret it. But on an animalistic level, it's looking for a partner to produce the strongest possible offspring. It's a natural process in us. when we see somebody, something happens in our system. If we were brought up naturally, it would happen often. We are not brought up naturally. We are told that we are not allowed to have our sexual feelings until we are married. Now that is a religious, social, moral. It has nothing to do with the basic you. Because some human beings don't have that conditioning. There are tribes in Africa, there are tribes in Java, there are tribes in different parts of the world that don't have that conditioning. So their sexual urge is not stopped, it's allowed. And so that is their natural flow. With us in the West, that's not allowed because we have been given Christian or religious, moral conditioning that stops our energy. I'll talk about that in a minute. So let's pretend we're natural. We see somebody, and what happens is when we see somebody to whom we're attracted, you know there's like a chemical happens. Something happens. You get a little thrill or a little buzz or something, and you just feel a connection with this person. Now again, with our conditioning, we get afraid of that because we're not supposed to feel sexual feelings. That's what religion has told us. The fact is we do. Whether we manage to suppress them or not, we feel these feelings. So naturally, we get this buzz, and what happens, and now this is scientifically confirmed, chemicals are released in our system. So now they have isolated the chemicals, and the chemicals that are released are very powerful. And the slang word is turning on. You get turned on. You get excited. You get a rush. You get a feeling. And it's stronger with some people and less strong with others. But there's a buzz. Now love is blind because these chemicals, they form a little filter there so you don't see the other person as they are. What you see is your romantic idea of them. You see the person through your chemicals. This is known as the honeymoon. This is when this buzz is there idealistically, and it's a wonderful time. And some people get addicted to it. Some people get addicted to this buzz. So science tells us this buzz can last for up to 6 months. Up to 6 months. And then the chemicals start to drop, and you then have another sort of connection with this person you're with. But it still involves chemicals. And these chemicals are binding chemicals, they're connecting chemicals. And again, biologically, it's so that you stay with this person through the pregnancy. It doesn't matter whether they're pregnant or not, because your system doesn't pick that up. It just assumes there's a pregnancy and that you two stay together for protection of the forthcoming offspring. After a certain time, and they're not sure about this because the studies are not complete, some say a year and some say 3 years, the chemicals drop completely. And then the connection through the chemicals is over. If two people are then beautifully and suitably connected, you stay together. And if not, the natural flow is to move apart. Now the Catholic Church does not tell you that. The Catholic Church says, until death you do part. Now, scientifically, biologically, this is totally untrue. And as far as I know the Bible, which is pretty good, is there's nowhere in the Bible that says you have to stay with your partner until death you do part. It's not mentioned anywhere in there. So your natural energy is to see somebody, be attracted to them, be drawn to them, to be with them, and then when the energy drops, to move away. Now there are tribes that live like that. And they live very happily. Because they don't get jealous, because nobody told them there is such a thing as jealousy. You see, the only reason you get jealous is because of your conditioning. In fact, most of the things you feel, especially the unpleasant ones, are because somebody told you that your natural feelings are not true. So that's the disturbance inside you. Now, if you're strictly religious, you don't want to hear this, because your life falls apart. Because most religious people base their life on their doctrine, on their conditioning, on how they're told life is supposed to be. But if you look, it doesn't work. We were just in contact with somebody that seems to be pretty knowledgeable, and it says, and they said at least 40% of Catholic priests have sexual contact, and 10 to 20% with men and the other with women. It doesn't work. Catholic people are not joyful, happy, blossoming, laughing people. In fact, hardly anybody is like that. And the reason is you've been told to be different from the way your energy wants to be. Your energy wants to play. It wants to have fun. And you've been told that's not supposed to be so. So most of your misery, most of your unhappiness, most of your violence, most of your anger is out of suppressed sexual energy. If you were left naturally alone, and I know a tribe like this, I spent a lot of time with them in Africa. This tribe used to keep the child on the mother's breast for as long as it wanted to stay there. And it fed whenever it wanted to feed. And it had constant physical contact. Now again, there are many studies that say the more physical contact you get, the happier, more contented you are. The less you get, the more violent and angry you are. Studies have shown that most of the people who are repeatedly in prison for violence are people that were not touched, not loved, and were treated violently. We need love. Need, like food. Drink and food nourish part of you. Love nourishes a deep part of you. And none of us have been loved to the extent that we need in order to be a joyful, happy, unfearing being. So if you consider most of the people you know, there's fear in them most of the time. Fear of getting close, fear of touching, fear of what you're going to say. And if you look at yourself, fear of what you're going to feel. And this fear is a retraction away from your natural self. But you have 6 billion people telling you that it is right to be the way you are. And it is not right to be joyful. It is not right to be open and loving and touching and caring. Except in very restricted, permitted situations, such as marriage. But how often does that happen? Go to a restaurant and you can tell the new lovers and you can tell the married people just by looking. How often do married people touch each other in the restaurant? I'm not sure whether you get arrested in this country for it. How often do you see married people lovingly with each other, holding hands or arm in arm or kissing? So our system doesn't work and it's making us very unhappy, and there's no support for it to change. Religion does not want you to change. It wants you to be suppressed. Because let me explain that. Your sexual energy is natural. There's nothing you can do about it. You can be a priest or you can be a monk or you can be a nun. It won't make any difference. You will feel sexual energy. Because that is natural to you. And then somebody says sexual energy is wrong. Now instantly that creates a disturbance inside of you and guilt. You see, and then when you're guilty, because you're feeling something you're not supposed to be feeling, you have to go to somebody to confess and be forgiven. That keeps you under control. So when the church says, until death us do part, that means it keeps you two people together and brings up your children as Catholics. So we have more Catholics. And I can talk about any other religion the same. The Jews are even stronger. And so, you don't know it, but you're being controlled. And how can I tell you you're being controlled when you're so locked into the control? If you were to come from another planet, your mouth would drop open and you'd say, what are these people doing to themselves? Here's this one globe, and they're all fighting each other, killing each other, in the name of love, in the name of religion. The Arabs will kill you because you're not an Arab. Christians have killed more people than anybody else on the planet. Christians have killed more people than anybody else on the planet. And their 10 commandments say, thou shalt not kill. They kill because they interpreted what Jesus said is, you cannot come unto God except through me. In other words, this is the only religion. Kill everybody else. Most of the people that have been killed on this planet is in the name of love, in the name of religion. It's not working. And it's getting worse. So we need to wake up and not go against our conditioning, not go against the church, not go against anybody. That's just a waste of time. But start to look and say, what is my truth? What is real for me? What is true for me? And it doesn't matter whether you do anything about it. The first thing is, find out your truth. Now if you do, you will not only prolong your life, if that's what you're interested in, but you will be more healthy. Because illness is suppressed energy. Energy you suppress goes into your body. And I'm not talking about New Age psychic stuff. I'm talking about what is now acknowledged by medical science. It hasn't reached your general practitioner yet. It hasn't reached your doctor yet. It hasn't reached the medical school yet. But it is acknowledged that your brain, your mind, your energy has a direct effect on your body. Things that you suppress will make you ill. Allow your energy to be natural, to be truthful, and you'll be more healthy. Now, to me, health is not the focus. It's, are you happy? It doesn't matter if you're wonderfully healthy if you're not happy. It doesn't matter if you're very rich if you're not happy. It doesn't matter how you are if you're not happy. And happiness is directly related to freedom. How free do you feel? If you see somebody you're attracted to, how free do you feel to approach them? Society says you can't do that if they're married or you're married. In fact, some states in the country, it's actually against the law, and you can be prosecuted. They have some very strange laws in the States. So, this chemical that you have doesn't disappear when you get married. You don't have a computer inside that says, I am now married, therefore I should never be attracted to anybody else. It doesn't work like that. This computer stays alive, stays active, and says, we're here to play. Your conditioning says, no, we're not. We have to be responsible, which means controlled, which means unhappy. I'm suggesting to you that your natural sexual energy is healthy until you suppress it. And that is the cause of your depression. So, what the mind usually does is, it says, if you get this far, most people don't get this far, but let's say, because you're feeling a bit loose and a bit happier and you're in a nice place, you just take a look at the possibility of not being so tight around sex. What the mind's likely to do is say, but then I'll go sexually crazy. I want to be with everybody. How do I then start to distinguish? The mind goes to the opposite. It always does that. The mind can't exist in the middle, so it either goes one side or the other side. So then it starts to think it's going to be with everybody. Now with a man that's not too bad, that's okay. Because society says if you're a man it's okay to be a man. That's what men are like. But if you're a woman you're in trouble. Because if you have sexual energy, you're a whore. You're a prostitute. You're a loose woman. And that has been men's trick to keep you enslaved for thousands of years. It's okay for a man to have sexual energy. It's not okay for a woman to have sexual energy. A man can have an orgasm as much as he likes, but basically a woman is never supposed to have an orgasm. In fact, if you're in the Catholic Church, you can't even enjoy sex. Even if you're having sex for a child, you're not supposed to enjoy it. And the fact is, the body loves it. That's the way it has a lot of fun. Because when you allow that energy to happen, things loosen up inside. And when things get loose, you feel better. The tighter you are, the more unhappy you are. The looser you are, the better you feel. So the more permission you give yourself, the more looser you are, the more fun you're having. So the mind says, this is what's going to happen. Let me explain that another way. You pretend you haven't eaten for a week. No food for a week. You've been out in the mountains, lost. You come down into town, you see a food shop, and you think you're going to eat all the food in the shop. You think you're never going to stop. But what happens? When you've eaten enough, you stop. When you're hungry, you eat. You might eat a little bit too much, but you won't eat the whole lot, because you can't. So the mind says one thing, but the body says another thing. So if you give yourself permission to free yourself sexually, what will happen is not what you think is going to happen. Something else happens. When you get attracted to somebody and your chemicals move, you contract around the genitals, whether you know it or not. With a woman it starts in the chest and goes down to the vagina. With a man it starts directly at the vagina. Now you don't know... down to the penis. Now, you probably don't know this because you don't know yourself so well. So just try it out. A woman does not get turned on at the vagina. She gets turned on here. And most men don't know that. It's the chest, it's actually the chest through the breasts that starts a woman to be turned on. That's why she takes longer to turn on than a man. Because a man turns on directly at his genitals. That's the positive energy at the man. That's where he feels it first. The woman feels it here. She actually feels it at the nipples, the breasts, the chest, and down to the vagina. That's why it takes longer for a woman to feel the energy, normally. So you feel this energy, and then in order to get a feeling about it, you contract at the genitals. If you're having the sexual act, in order to get an orgasm, you have to contract at the genitals. You can't have an orgasm otherwise. So you contract, and when you contract, you pull away from each other. So sex is not intimate. You might be touching bodies, you might be touching genitals, but your energy pulls away in order to get that contraction for the explosion, which is the orgasm. Now when you've done that enough, totally, completely, as I say, you get bored. And then something goes click inside. And when it goes click, what happens is when you get attracted to somebody, when you have this connection, this feeling, instead of contracting, you expand. And it's a very wonderful feeling, because sex rarely includes love, but love always includes sex, because love is an expansion. Love is an opening. So you see somebody, and what happens is, I just thought of something else, I'll tell you that in a minute. When you see this person, you expand. And when you expand, you have a very wonderful feeling, because it includes the heart. Instead of the energy getting caught in the genitals in order to have this animalistic, sexual reproduction feeling, it comes through the whole body, down to the fingertips, up through the head. The thoughts are lighter and more playful. The heart is open. There's a caring for this person. And then we could say that the energy is more sensual than sexual, because you don't want anything. You don't need anything. When you go deeply into your sexual feeling, there's this want, there's this need, it's reproductive. This other energy is open, it's light, it's playful. You may connect with this person and feel this love and want to be with them. But if they don't want to be with you, it's perfectly fine, because you're feeling good the way you are. Now men understand this more than women, because men and women have totally different sexual feelings. And the trouble is, men and women don't know that. They both think that they have the similar feelings, and they don't. A man is outgoing, a woman is receptive. And they're very different energies. So when a man is young and alive and he sees a very attractive woman, a woman that's attractive to him, it's hell. There's so much energy released in there. He can't forget that woman. He might think about that woman all day, all the week, because so much energy has been released inside. A woman is a little differently, but it's still there the same way, because there's that need. Biological need. When the need has been taken care of, when you've given yourself permission to be who you are, then there's this soft, loving, caring, sensual energy. So you can touch people and be close to them without having that contraction, that having to have them, having to be with them, and the rejection of that if you feel it's not allowed. So life becomes a lot more fun. You have intercourse a lot less, because you don't need the hit of that energy, because it's there a lot of the time. If you do have intercourse with somebody who's in the same energy as you, then there's this bathing of light and energy and joy. And it doesn't have an end, because you don't focus on orgasm. So you can pull away from each other, no orgasm, but no frustration, fulfillment. You feel totally filled. There's no end to it, and you feel fulfilled. So if you get a man and a woman in that state, when they've stopped making love, the man doesn't turn over and go to sleep. You stay together. You stay touching. You stay in each other's energy, because the sexual process, the sensual process, is still continuing. Now we're talking, I'm going to go on, but we're going to talk about the advanced stage of this. The advanced stage of this is You are so deeply fulfilled all the time that that energy is always there and always available with everybody all the time. Now, by that I don't mean that you're going to be sexually or sensually connected with everybody, but you are open for it if it is appropriate. There is nothing in there that makes a judgment. And so, this is a little bit I skipped. When you reach that stage, Jesus has a saying that says, it's quoted, "When you see a man as a woman and a woman as a man, then will you enter into the kingdom." The Christians haven't really sorted that one out. There are other sayings connected with that. When you see the up as the down and the down as the up, the in as the out and the out as the in. When thine eye be single. That's what it said. When thine eye be single. And in the East they talk about the third eye, one eye. When you reach this state of expansion, of love, of caring, your eye becomes single because now there is no judgment and no separation between a man and a woman. When you see a woman as a man and a man as a woman. So your love becomes universal. And if it was appropriate, your sex would be universal also. It would include the man, or it would include the woman. It would include the same sex. When you've reached a state of love. In this natural state, it is unlikely that you would spend sexual time with the same sex as a man. But not so with a woman, because again, the systems are different. But all the barriers disappear. There is no. There is no rejection. There is only inclusion. So when you come up to somebody, your mind doesn't say, this is a man, therefore we are not allowed to actually feel anything, let alone sex. We're not allowed to feel sex. The mind doesn't say that anymore. It doesn't say it's allowed or disallowed. It doesn't say anything. It's just there. However you want to be, with whomever you want to be. And what I suggest to you is that is love. And you will only be with the people that is appropriate for you to be. You won't have to think anything. If this person isn't appropriate to be with you, you won't be with them. When you're sexually suppressed, you keep being with people that are not suitable for you. Because this energy is so strong, it keeps getting you with anybody to release that energy. As soon as that energy is in its natural flow, you're never with anybody that's not appropriate. And you're with a lot fewer people than you thought you were going to be. You don't know this, again, and don't believe me, but start to look for yourself. You get drawn to people not by coincidence. They have something about them in their ways that has something to do with your incompleteness. Let me explain. During the honeymoon, there's nothing wrong with your beloved. They're perfect. That's because you've got these chemicals over here, you see. Love is blind, so everything's perfect. And then the chemicals start to drop down, and to the second stage, and you start to see little things about them that you don't like so much. And then the next level drops down, and then there's a whole bunch you really don't like about this person. Things that you thought were quite cute at one time, and now they just get on your nerves. And you get angry, and you get upset. Let me explain that. You get upset about the other, about the things you do not accept in yourself. Everything you get angry about with somebody else, it's about the thing you do not accept in yourself. So, most people don't get to this stage, but the fact is, when you become responsible, when you start to see what's really happening, somebody does something, you get angry, take a look inside. You're angry because you have that tendency in you, and you don't like to see it in somebody else. So what happens is a relationship is a mirror to help you to see yourself more clearly. That's what it's for. It's not supposed to work. It doesn't work. As soon as you have not angry with your partner and you're not having fun with them, leave. It's over. Go to the next one. And you'll choose, if you're complete with this one, if you're still angry with the person, you're not complete. If you're not angry anymore, but you don't like the way they behave, they're not treating you the way you would like to be treated, but there's no anger, there's no resentment, it's just you don't like it, leave. You've done the job. Find the next person. And let them push your buttons. Until you don't have any buttons left. And when you don't have any buttons left, this is what happens. You say, I do not need a relationship. I would like one, but I don't need it. And I am not going to compromise. I am not going to be with a person who is less conscious than I am and live in conflict. It's not worth it. Because life is beautiful on my own. Now, when you meet somebody else who's in that state, then something happens. Something way beyond what you could imagine could possibly happen between two people. Everything is wonderful on your own, but it becomes 10 times more with somebody who's in that state. When Grace and I are apart, we never miss each other. We hardly ever phone each other. We're not apart very often, but sometimes. When she goes to see her family, because they're very strange people, I don't go there. Let me tell you about her family. Grace has had a childhood that is hardly believable. Everybody in the family, I mean everybody, are alcoholics. And some are into drugs as well, and most of them smoke all the time. They live in a violence that's hard to understand. So Grace went back to her family after not seeing them for 7 years. They were reluctant to pick her up at the train station, but they did. They went back. They continued with their drinking, and the first night she was there, her father, who is 70-odd, 73 something, was breaking furniture over the head of her brother. That was welcome home. This is normal. So she lived in violence. Her stepfather had sex with her from the age of 8, 9, several times a week, until she was 15 or 16. And lots of other things, lots of drugs, lots of violence. And yet here is a beautiful being with no resentment, no complaint, no excuse of the past. She lives her life in the moment. And we can all do that. So if you've been sexually abused, don't use it as an excuse. It's in your system, it's in your cells, but it's not an excuse. You can be as light and as beautiful and as loving as you dare to be. But you have to say yes to your energy. And a lot of that energy is sex. And if you suppress that, you'll go dark. If you're capable of reading energy, and you can see darkness. The Vatican is one of the darkest places on the planet. And psychics know that. Because it's just suppressed energy, plus other things. But it's just denial. So when you deny that energy, you become dark, you become depressed. And then it's as though you're wearing dark glasses, so everywhere you look looks dark, so you think the world is dark. The world isn't dark. And it isn't light, it just is. It's a great place if you're not wearing glasses that color your vision. And suppressed sex colors your vision. So when you've gone into it totally, the darkness disappears. Relating starts to happen. Not relationship. You will never be in a relationship again. Because a relationship includes time. Relationship says, we are in a relationship. And that isn't true. Nobody is, because there's no time. The only place time exists is in your mind. We are relating. We're all relating. And we don't know whether you're going to relate again by coming back to another event, or we never see each other. We don't know. We're relating. And so are Grace and I. When she goes with somebody else, or I go off with somebody else for a while, we don't know whether we're going to come back. We relate, we're not in a relationship. And that's the way life is. Relationships and marriage are one of the most destructive things on the planet. It is separating. It's like religion, also destructive. It separates. This is right, this is wrong. An Arab is ready to kill you because you don't believe in Allah, the one God. And as Christians are ready to kill the Arabs because there is only one God. If you see yourself as a visitor to the planet, you see how very silly this is. Especially as a visitor from the planet, and you know there isn't a God at all. Only godliness, and we're part of it. The human being wants a God, wants a husband, wants a wife, wants a house, wants a job, wants something to hold on to relate to have security about. Even although people lose mortgages, husbands and wives leave or die, cars break down, you get thrown out of work, still anything to be safe and secure. And we're not. Take no thought of the morrow, for the morrow takes thought of itself. Live now, for now, and you're living at your maximum potential. All afraid to be alone, and then we'll shift to another level to talk to you. You see, basically we're alone. Totally, utterly alone. We're all unique and completely alone. And when you've accepted that, you have, we'll call it a realization, that you're not alone in your higher form. But in this form, you're totally alone. And no matter how close you are to somebody, on the human level, there is only aloneness. And we keep trying to disguise that by being with somebody else, and that's not possible. That's why I say when you've got being alone, that's when you can be with someone else. When you've accepted being alone. So the New Age talks about self-realization, and there's no such thing. There is no self. And when we accept that possibility, then another level happens. And just one more thing I would say to you is, when you've realized a certain level, it's quite obvious to you, and you can see all the other people that haven't reached that level yet. So if you go to Africa and you see the level that they're living on, it's quite obvious. So I'm always suggesting, and I always suggest, be open to the possibility there's something other than your mind can see. So I agree with you, most people are avoiding aloneness, but also when you accept you're alone, you realize you're not alone. Because you are not. And then life lives through you. You become part of the dance. So, as I said before, not to agree, not to believe, just let it in. And if you feel disturbed, you're touched. If you feel uncomfortable, something's happening. Take a look. Don't bother sending your energy back at me. Take a look at yourself. Usually when you get upset, disturbed, angry, you want to argue, you want to defend, you're being touched somewhere. And if you're being touched, it means there's something you're not seeing clearly. Take a look and don't take it seriously. What else about your fear? You say, well, let me just go. I'll just stay there for a moment. Whether you know it or not, that's your fear. And it's more with women than men, because men's orgasm is more local. When a woman has a total orgasm, she disappears more easily, because it's very total. And I mean disappear, you die. For one moment, you're dead to yourself. You're very alive and you may be making a lot of noise, but you're dead to yourself. There is no awareness of the self just for one moment. And for some people it lasts quite a long time. So that's the fear. But you will meet that fear, whatever you do, whatever path you take, you're going to meet that point. If you sit in meditation long enough, you'll meet that point. Whatever you do, you are going to meet that point one day or other. The dissolution of the self, the illusion of self, and the melting back into the unformed. And you can delay it for as long as you like. You have the illusion of free will, which means in what we call time and space, you can spread it out. But eventually you're going to face that point of not holding and allowing yourself to slide away into whatever there is. So at some level there is the fear of losing your identity, dying, and you don't know whether you're going to get reborn. So that's one level of your fear. What else? You are with somebody to whom you're attracted. Then the usual thing is this. Now it's different with men and women. So we've got to explain that. A man has been rejected by his mother millions of times. From wanting the breast when it wasn't convenient, to wanting the diapers changed when it wasn't convenient, to wanting to go out to play, to want to stay out late, to want to have a girlfriend, and the mother has said no, no, no. And every time there's been a no, there's felt like a humiliation in the man.
And you don't think that women have been feeling the same
Well,
with their fathers?
First of all, we're talking about the men. Okay. And so, the man's role, his energy is outwards. That's a man's natural energy is outwards, and woman's natural energy is inwards. It's receptive. It's like the vagina. And the man's energy is outwards, like the penis. So his energy is to go out, and that's the form we've accepted on planet Earth. The man makes the approach. We all know that if a woman wants to get a man, she can get him. But the game is, the man is supposed to be after the woman. And so he is the one that asks. He's the one that puts himself out. And he's the one that's likely to get that terrible feeling when the woman says, no, I don't want to be with you, or I don't like you, or I'm not attracted to you. So it's like you've reached out for the cookies and had your hand slapped over and over and over. So there's a reluctance in the man to reach out. Now, of course, I'm generalizing, but I'm just giving you a level for that. Now, with the woman, With the father, she has had to be the way the father wants her to be, or she's been in trouble. So, at a certain age, usually the father's energy cuts off. And that's when she starts to get sexual energy moving in there. The father's energy, which is suppressed, gets attracted towards the daughter. It's not allowed, or even if it's allowed, it's done in an indirect way, and there's guilt about it. So the woman also has an attitude. Female and males have attitudes. We have attitudes about each other. In the Bible, and they shall have enmity with each other. They'll always be in trouble with each other. And it's a lot to do with how we've been brought up. So we don't meet. So when a woman meets a man, somewhere in there is the father. When a man meets a woman, somewhere there's the mother. And we have to accept that our conditioning contains that. But we need to be here, because this is not your mother. This is not your father. It includes past lives, it includes all these things, but you have to see this person, this moment. Then, wow, this is a whole subject. Levels and levels and levels of it. So we'll just carry on with some of the levels that are on the top. So, both are expecting trouble. The male and the female are expecting trouble, because life is usually trouble. And we all hate rejection. Practically everybody hates to be rejected. And that's something about what Grace is talking about. Being careful about the other person. Being afraid of being rejected, be afraid of hurting, afraid being hurt. So, you are not fully there, honestly and openly. The computer's going on to check things out. Does she like me? Doesn't she like me? With the woman, does he like me? Doesn't? All these things going on. And you're not really meeting because you're both tied up in your own energy, checking out the other person. You think the other person's looking at you, but no, they're looking at you, looking at them. That's the way it goes on. If you want to get free, you've got to be in the moment and be prepared to be honest. Now, what I have said to me thousands of times in sessions and groups, people say, well, I was thinking this and I was thinking that, and I didn't know whether they would think this, and I did. And what I say is, tell the truth. That's all. Just say to them, right now, I want to ask you to be with me, but I'm afraid you're going to reject me and I'm going to get hurt, and I don't know whether you like me. Give them the whole lot. Not seriously or control it. Just give them everything. And you'll probably find the other person will say, wow, what a relief. Do you know, I was just thinking this and that and the other and the other. And then the whole game's over. It's the game. The whole world is based on a game that doesn't work. And it's all based on subterfuge. And can I get up and be safe and not be under an unsafe? And just say the truth. Softly, lovingly, non-seriously. And there you are. That's what's going on. So, when Grace says she's afraid of the other person, that's because, first of all, you haven't really seen the other person because you're busy seeing. You haven't seen the other person because you're so busy worrying about whether they like you or not, or whether you're going to upset them or not. So you don't see the situation clearly. And as I said before, don't worry about that because they're doing exactly the same sort of thing. So there's these two closed circuits. We need to open up and include our mental process and tune into the person. Then you start to get a feeling of something. You start to get a feeling of whether these two people are attracted to each other or not. Then the next thing is you have to reach out. The woman needs to reach out in her passive way, and that is, a woman has a way of showing whether she's interested in a man or not. Then there's another complication, I'll talk about that. The male needs to take the risk of what he calls rejection and make it clear, I'm attracted to you. I would like to be. It has to be clear, so you can start playing the game clear. Have we followed that so far? But if you're worried about what the other person is going to think, you're going to contract and you won't be in touch with them sensitively, so you won't know what they're thinking. Because you're out of touch. You're in your own circuit, not including the others. So, do you see that this person may not know you, but they could see you. They got a sense of you. And you'd got a sense of them. You see, we're all psychic. And I really mean that. We are in touch with each other if we're present to be there. But mostly, we're afraid to be there. And we're afraid to be there because we feel things too deeply when we're really there. And one of the things we feel very deeply when we're there is sex. We're afraid to feel our deeper feelings. Because, and then we get past lives, parents, religion, teachers, all these things, because you've been told that it's not natural to be you. And I'm suggesting it is natural to be you and feel however you feel. That's natural. That's healthy. So in the communication thing we were talking about with Grace, there's all this calculating going on. Am I going to upset the person? What about this? What about that? If you're still trying to live life safely and securely, you are not going to be alive at your maximum potential. The safer, the more secure you think you are, the less alive you are. So did you notice we just did a silly exercise where you were just saying silly things, but you came alive. You were laughing and giggling and playing. And that's what life's about. So somebody came up to me and said, what is the point of this exercise? And this person didn't get the energy because they were looking for the point. See, there's no point to life. There's no meaning to life. This is life. This is all we have at the moment. And you can think God, and you can think spiritual, and you can think Tantra, you can think whatever you like, but this is it. This is all you have at the moment. And all you ever have is the moment. That's all you ever have. It doesn't matter what you think things are going to be. This is it. This is the time to have fun. And you have fun when you take risks. You have fun when you live dangerously. You have fun when you go beyond these boundaries that say, this has happened to me and that has happened. When you go beyond those boundaries, that's when life bursts inside. And one of the energies that burst inside is sex, because it's been denied so strongly, you haven't lived it. So it's still living down there in a little box knocking. And then you walk around and you see somebody you're attracted to and he goes... and you go, hello? So Grace asked a question that sounds like it's a problem to her, but often she goes up to people and she says, hello, you're beautiful, or I love your eyes, or I love the way you walk, or something. She just goes up like a child and just shares herself. And first of all, the person usually goes, and then they light up. Because we love to hear that we're beautiful. Even if we don't believe it, we like hearing it. We come more alive. First of all, you've come from what we will call the outside world, where contact isn't normal, where intimacy is not usual. So we've come to this place where we can start to melt with each other. So one thing is, one of the reasons why people don't get together very quickly is we've come from these isolated places, and we have to, by experiment, learn that it's okay to melt and we don't get into the terrible trouble we thought we were going to get into. That's the first thing. Any of you felt sexually aroused in some way? Come on! Fun, isn't it? When you allow that energy, that's what brings you alive. You see, most of the world is attempting to kill us. Our parents do the very best they can to knock our spirit out of us, because until they do, we're too noisy, we're too alive, we're too much trouble. So parents try to stop us. And then we get to school, and then the pressure's really on. You've got to sit very still on those very hard benches for very long lengths of time and listen to very boring people talking very boring things. So here's another pressure on your life. And then you start to get little stirrings down here usually around 10 or 12 nowadays. It's got earlier. And then it gets stronger and stronger into your teens, this sexual energy, and it's not allowed. In the meantime, you're eating poisoned foods, breathing poisoned air, drinking impure water. Everything, you're suppressed from everything you want to do the way you want to do it. Everything's trying to reduce you into a robot. So if you want to stay alive, you've got to work at it. The church says you have to choose somebody at a certain age in your life, when you're at a certain level, to live with for the rest of your life. That's what the church says. So you've got to pick very carefully, but quickly. And then as soon as you're married, all your sexual feelings for everybody and everything else has to disappear instantly, except for your partner. So you see, there's a conspiracy. It's to turn you into a robot, to take away your sparkle, to take away your life, so you can be controlled. And you pay your taxes, and you go to war when you're told, and you buy the products you're supposed to buy when they tell you on television. And you behave very nicely and very politely, and you're never too noisy, and you have to wear exactly the right clothes. And some years it can be this far down on a woman, and sometimes this far, and sometimes here and here and here and here, but you're told how to be. And inside there, that little spark of life is just dying and dying and dying. And you see, as people get older, they get less beautiful, usually. And it's nothing to do with age, and it's nothing to do with hormones. It's to do with the amount of life you're ready to live. And generally, men age less than women. And it's supposed to be with hormones and children and this and that. And it's not true. It's that women suppress themselves more than men, because men have been given permission to fuck. And women haven't. You're not supposed to. So where does that energy go? It goes in inside and it becomes wrinkles, and it becomes bitter, and it becomes resentful. And now we're in an age where there's no excuse for that. But if you want approval from everybody, you're not going to do it, because they don't want to give you approval. You've got to take it. So if you live your truth, if you live your sexual energy, you become younger, not older. You wouldn't think Grace was 60, would you? So let's go back to this again. If you want to live safely and securely and predictably, you'll die. Slowly, slowly, slowly you'll die. And then one day your heart stops and you're officially dead. But you're dead long, long before then, unless you're ready to live your truth. So, how do you become more alive? You've got to watch for any excuse to be more alive. When you walk down the path and you see a flower, look at it, feel it dancing in the wind, and feel that little tickle inside. When you see the wind rush across the grass, or the trees blow, or you see a bird hanging in the sky, just feel that inside. When you see somebody you're attracted to, it doesn't matter whether it's the mind, the body, or the emotions, whether you're going to do anything about it or not. It might be just their eyes, or their breasts, or their bum. Whatever it is, if it touches you in some way, be touched. And there's a little bit more life coming up inside. Don't be spiritual. It's a terrible disease. Be real. Be alive. And what you call spiritual will happen to you naturally. Love will happen to you naturally. If you're alive. What were you going to say? Sex, relationships, jealousy, and love, we'll call it. Okay, jealousy. Okay. When you're over jealousy, that's one of the last stages to go. That's one of the last things that disappears. So let's talk about jealousy a little bit. Jealousy is a fact, not a problem. It is a fact. Most people feel jealous. When you're over jealousy, normally you're back into balance and you live a life of love. You will love your beloved and you will love the person that they've gone off with equally. You might still prefer to be with your beloved more than the other person, but the love will be the same. And the love will be the same for everybody. Now, one little thing people get mixed up with. Liking and loving are different. You can deeply love somebody and not like them. Because what you're liking is to do with behavior, not the person. Love is to do with the person. You love the person, but you don't like their behavior. So some wives say, especially wives more than men, say, I don't want to leave him because I love him. Well, if I lived with all the people I love, I'd have to have a very big house. And there's a lot of people that I love, I would be very happy not to meet again. Because I don't like their behavior. So you need to take a look at the difference between liking and loving. When you've come into that balance, then jealousy disappears. But that's one of the final stages. That's definitely at least stage 3. So what is jealousy? Well, first of all, you don't have to know what jealousy is. Because trying to know keeps you separate from it. And being separate from it means it can't process itself. So what usually happens is when you're jealous, you do everything you can to avoid feeling it. So the first thing is to be angry at your partner. And if you get angry at them, you don't take responsibility for your feelings. It's their fault. And it's never their fault. Or the other person's fault, or anybody's fault. It just is. You are trying to avoid your jealousy. And I understand that. It feels terrible. But you see, you don't know what jealousy is. You only know the shadow of it. And then you run away. And you run away either by getting angry at her, or him, or you. Yeah. But you see, you don't accept that that is your behavior in that moment. And the other thing is, listen carefully, is that's what you need. Existence never gives you anything you don't need. When I see your tears, I feel touched, and I remember the time I was jealous and the pain I was in. And I wanted to get away. And one day it went, and this is the way it went. One day I stood there in the room and I said, I am jealous. And this is what it feels like. And I didn't go anywhere. I didn't blame anybody. I didn't escape. I stood there and felt it. And it got worse and worse and worse until I thought I was going to die with the pain. And then, and it was gone. But you've got to go into it. And you don't know how long it's going to take. It might take this whole lifetime. It might take 1 second. But there is no escape from anything. So you can know that it's because of this and this and this. It won't make any difference. If it did, everybody would be cured of jealousy, because we all know the theory. It doesn't make any difference. So you can go to a workshop and be told, oh, it's about this and this and this and this. It won't make any difference. You have been given that feeling because that's the feeling you need to heal you. It's a homeopathic remedy. High dosage. So you're right about the fact that nobody owns anybody, but the basis of what this is you don't own yourself yet. So when somebody leaves you, you felt left because you don't have yourself. And the way you find yourself is to accept what you're feeling in the moment, not escape from it. Do you get that? And that's anything. Your anger, your greed, your sex, anything. Feel it and it transforms. Before it does, it gets worse. It's like homeopathy. It usually makes it worse before it gets better. As I was saying before, most women are afraid of their sexual energy. They're afraid of themselves. So again, another true story from the last group, wherever we were. I was getting, right. So I was with somebody and we were walking down the street and I had my arm around her and we were walking really close. And I said, your skin is with me, but your bones are not. And she says, yes, I'm holding back. So I said, so do you know what the holding back is? And she says, yes. She says, I feel a contact with you. And if I was to let go, I would feel something that I would be afraid to feel that would have consequences I'm afraid of. I feel that I would open to you in such a way, and then you would go away, and there'd be nobody to be open with. So what she's saying, I'd rather be tight and tense and making myself ill because you might not, saying to me, you might not be here. But you see, when you open, people find you. If you live tight and close, people can't find you because you're all hidden away and wrapped up. So if you allow your energy, often you will be with somebody that your mind might not be attracted to, but your energy is attracted. It's throbbing or pulsing or wants to be there. And all it's doing is using this person as an excuse for you to release your suppressed energy. It doesn't matter whether you go to bed with them or not. Just feel the energy. Come alive. And be alive. So on one level, you're afraid of that rush in there. Because like we were saying before, when that rush comes, it blows you away. And then you don't know who you are and you're not in control. But that's when you're having fun. You know, it's not a matter of jumping. You see, energy flow is there if you don't stop it. We're all alive if we don't stop it. You just need to become aware of the mechanism where you hold your energy back. And if you stop holding it back, there it is. We are all love. That's who and what we are if we don't stop it. So don't look to jump, just watch in a situation how you hold back. If you're trying to think of the right thing to say or be the right way, you're holding back. Just be yourself, whatever is you. How many of you think you might be interested in a part 3? Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, with practice, right. We'll get Grace to demonstrate and... Well, you know, I'm really enjoying these sessions. Up to now, I haven't enjoyed them that much. It's like it's been so stiff and so tight and so stuck. And I just feel there's energy moving amongst us now, and it's becoming fun. And we're getting on with real things. And what, to me, real thing is what is ever happening in the moment. So we call it sex when it's sex, and it's sadness when it's sadness, and frustration when it's frustration. But to me, it's about this moment. And then we're real. And then we can meet each other. But if we're off chanting or calling for angels or going to something we can't see, we can open ourselves to the possibility, but all we have is now. This is real. We know we're here. We know we can see each other. And if you accept that, and it's not a promise, but if you accept that, you'll start to see there is more to life. But not through your mind and not through your beliefs. You'll have a direct experience. And one of the most direct experiences you can have is sex. So don't hold yourself back tonight. Men and women, at their essence, are exactly the same. They're not men and women. They're beings. But out from the essence, we're very different. In that, our biological system has taken one side of a balance. And it's decided to manifest itself in one particular way. And the female is very different from the male, which is obvious, but there's more to it than we see. The male's energy is outgoing, the female's energy is receptive. I'm talking about generalization in its natural state. The male's energy is less sensitive. The female energy is very sensitive. It's receptive, it's sensitive, it's open. The male is a more simple animal. The female is more complicated in a way because it carries a bigger side of the reproduction cycle. So the male goes out, and I'm talking generally and joking in a way, but it's not very bright. The male energy is not very bright, it's not very intelligent. It just goes out and hunts and kills and collects and takes care of things in not a very sensitive way. The female energy is very soft, very receptive, very sensitive, very conscious. Predictive. So it often sees things coming. It can often see things happening out of its sight. So it's psychic. So now I've talked about the male and the female energy, but of course both of those energies are in male and female. But the male energy is stronger in a male and the female energy is stronger in the female, but both are there. And whenever those come together in balance, then a new type of human being is born. When it's in balance, there is no judgment. This person is unconditional love. If they're too balanced, they disappear. The male loses the male, the female loses the female, and then they lose their body. If it's too balanced, you can't stay here. We are here only through conflict. That's what keeps us here. No conflict, we're gone. The game is, how little can we reduce the conflict so we can have fun and still stay here? So women, about men. Men have very delicate egos, male egos, and it's directly connected to the penis. So if the male's mind gets upset, he's either going to ejaculate straight away, or he's going to lose his erection. So you have to be sensitive with the male. The male doesn't look sensitive, they're very sensitive. They can play macho and play tough, but don't believe the game. Inside, the male is very insecure, and they don't know anything about you. They think you work the same as you work, the same as they work. They don't know the way your body works, so you have to tell them. But of course, if you tell them directly, then they think that you're the mother, you're telling them they're wrong, and they'll lose their erection. So you have to be careful how you talk to them. They think that you turn on the same way as they turn on, and you don't. You turn on differently. We'll talk about that for the men later on. So they imagine that you are feeling the same as they're feeling, and you're not. So you've got to tune in, connect with them, and then help them to see you more clearly. And remember, every one of you are different, and every one of you are different in every moment. So we're not talking about any set rules here. We're talking about helping this man to see you in this moment about what you want. Now, your difficulty with that is when you told your father that, you're in trouble. Because fathers are supposed to be fathers, and they're supposed to know everything and in control. So if ever you told your father something, you were probably in trouble. But if you don't tell the man what you want and you don't want and how you want it, you're not going to have a good time, because men aren't very psychic. It's very rare to get a man to tune into you. Sometimes you can find a man that has great techniques. So they're really good, they'll suck your toe and put their tongue in your ear and do all sorts of exotic things, but it's not to you. They don't tune into you. They're doing a technique. So it's rare to find somebody who's loose and flowing and experienced and tuned into you. So you have subtle education to do. And you have to tune into the man, and you have to tune into when the energy is there and when it withdraws. Now your natural tendency is not to do that. And I'll talk more about that when we talk from the man's side. Your tendency is to receive. As a woman, your tendency is... So you think automatically, you just lie there and the man will know exactly what to do, and he'll do it to you, and you have to do very little back. So that's your tendency, but you see, the man doesn't know that. So you have to find this balance of tuning into the man, feeling how they are, what's appropriate, and include yourself in that. Because if you go out too far to please the man, you lose yourself again. And we'll talk about that from the man's side too. Inside the man there is a thrusting energy, and that's biological. The penis wants to thrust inside your body. It wants to push inside because that's the way it gets the sperm deep inside. So at a certain point, the male energy takes over and pumps it spasmodically. And so it fucks at that point, like a horse does. It takes over. And at that point, the man really isn't there and he's not in charge. There's a certain point where it's gone. And then the man can do nothing about it and you can't do anything. There's that point. Right. Yeah. Now what the man doesn't know doesn't realize, he thinks your vagina feels the same as his penis. He doesn't know that it's very, very different. So the penis sticks out. And in one way it's vulnerable because it sticks out. And the testicles feel more vulnerable. But in fact, it's out there. Now the vagina being in and going deep inside you, you feel much more vulnerable. But the man doesn't know that. He thinks your vagina feels the same as his penis. So he's not so likely to be sensitive to your vagina. You have to tell him. And again, you've got to do it very gently and very carefully so he doesn't feel as though he's done something wrong and withdraws energy. So you just have to gently show and indicate that for many of you, if you've allowed yourself to stay sensitive in your vagina, it's a very delicate area for you. Even although the medical science tries to tell you that you have no nerve endings in there and therefore no feeling, you know that's very different. You know what it feels like to have somebody insensitively in there, right inside you. The man doesn't know that. So again, you have to tell him, and you also have to tell him the different areas of sensitivity for you. And we'll try and go into that from the man's side in a moment. The energy from a man gets turned on in a different way from you. When you get turned on, it's not so physical. It can be physical, but it's not so physical. It's an energy thing. And a man doesn't work that way. He's very visually affected. So certain shapes, certain things affect him very strongly. And when they do, they release chemicals inside that brings up a burning desire. And the desire is to fuck. It's not to make love. This energy is very powerful. It's reproduction. And if you want to see what it's like inside a man, watch two horses. The mare will keep running away for a while, and the stallion goes after her, and they keep running around and playing and rubbing necks. And then at a certain point, the mare backs her rear end up, and the stallion goes in and fucks, not for very long, but very hard and very powerful. And then it comes straight out, the penis drops, and they don't even notice they're there then. They just walk away and it's all over. And on one level, that's what happens with a man. It's very animal, it's very powerful, it's reproductive, it's biological. And of course there is another level when they get more sensitive and they become more conscious. But you've got to remember that's a very basic energy in a man. So be aware of that. So if a man fucks, turns over and goes to sleep, don't take it personally. So, women, do you have any questions about men? And I'm doing the answering rather than answering everybody else because it's quicker this way. What? Do you have any other questions? So you reckon you know about men now? Okay, so let's take a look at the other side, of which of course I am less experienced in. That is, for a man, for a woman's side. So a lot of what I've just said for the women, for the men, of course that's for you too. You've got to realize that the woman is very different from you, and you need to tune into the woman. And so when I say tune in, I mean this woman, this moment. And they change. They change when you touch them in different places. They change. They get open, they get closed. So you were saying that you go off in the mind sometimes. You need to be there and be aware when the woman's gone off. And I know you go off too, but we're just talking from this side. Sometimes a woman goes off, you've touched them, you've said something, you've moved in a certain way, and it's triggered something about a past sexual experience, maybe with when they were children, or with their father or an uncle or something. You've triggered something and they're off in the mind and they're not there anymore. And you need to be sensitive that they're not there anymore. Because if you go on, they might go on, but they'll be mechanical. Nobody will be there. Then you won't feel satisfied and they won't feel satisfied. You need to be there. And when I say there, I mean everywhere your hand goes, you go. Don't let your hand go anywhere where you're not. Just be aware of everywhere you go and what's happening underneath your hand as well. And you can tell when it's open and you can tell when it's closed if you're there. But that's the key. You've got to be there. And you've got to sense. And then, of course, you've got your textbook places that it's okay to touch. You get the Kama Sutra, or you get one of the modern where it's okay. But every woman is different. And to some women, they might get very aroused if you touch them in one place once, but if you touch there twice, it gets very uncomfortable for them. You've got to check that out. So for some women, the ear might be very erotic for a little while and then not. And you've got to be there. Because women have great difficulty saying no, because they're used to pleasing their father, where they didn't say no, because they were in trouble. So they have a mechanism that if you go on touching, they sort of go, okay, you can go on doing it, but I don't like it anymore. But they don't tell you. You've got to pick that up. And it's the same when you're touching other erotic areas, they can go numb. So the clitoris can go numb or go uncomfortable. Something that was very exciting at one moment becomes very uncomfortable, or nothing at another. You've got to be there all the time. And each woman is different every moment. So just because you made love with this woman one way once doesn't mean to say that's the way to be next time. So be there. As I was explaining to you before, your penis feels vulnerable in one way, but nothing like the vagina. Remember, the vagina is a hole inside the woman's tender parts. So when you go in there, whether the woman knows it or not, there's a fear. And there's also some sensitive parts in there that if you bump it hard, it can be a great shock to the system, and then the woman's likely to close down. Now the very part that can be uncomfortable, the cervix, often a woman is very sensitive there, and if you bump it, she'll close up. And it's very painful. Until she... So, if you bump it to start with, she'll close down and it'll be very painful. But after she's opened up, then bumping it can be very exciting for some women, some of the time. There's no rules, you've got to find out. So sometime your penis might go in, hit the cervix, and there's a scream or a shout and a withdrawal. And then you go on being careful. But you see, maybe she's going to change later on. Maybe when your penis touches next time, it's very pleasurable for you, for her. So don't avoid anything. Just be sensitive, be careful. And then respond to the woman, because often she holds back to a certain point. So we'll talk about that. A woman doesn't turn on at the vagina like you do. You turn on at the penis. So when you get excited, instantly your energy goes there. It actually goes to the mind first, but you experience it at the penis. A woman doesn't work like that. A woman opens, her sensitivity happens through the breasts. That's her positive energy. The nipples, the breasts, and then at the place in between, which not many women are very sensitive there. But that's a very powerful place for men and women. And not all women are sensitive at the breasts or the nipples. Often they've withdrawn their energy from there because they were teased at school, the father made jokes about it. Women would often withdraw their energy. Naturally, the breasts are very, very sensitive and very erotic. But most women have withdrawn it from there. And you don't know what this woman is like in this moment. So some women you can suck the nipple really hard, and some women you can hardly touch, and they'll jump, it's so strong. You've got to find out about this woman, this moment. So if you want to go through a process, the main thing is to be sensitive, and then you'll get drawn to the places that are appropriate. But just take a look at, this is where a woman turns on, and then the energy goes down to the vagina. If you go to the vagina too early, the woman never feels totally complete. It doesn't catch up. She might not know that, but it's not complete. Often it takes at least 20-30 minutes for two energies to engage deeply. It's possible in an instant, but it's very, very rare. 20 to 30 minutes before two energies engage deeply. So take your time. If you're really hot, both of you, then you've had foreplay before then. You might, in the restaurant or driving home, you've had the energy going, so you're already connecting with each other. But usually take your time, be with each other, tune in with each other, then everything goes deeper. You've got to remember the first thing again, they're all different every time. So we can't say this is the way women come down, or this is the way a woman comes down. It's always different. And often it depends on how deeply they're satisfied, how fulfilled they feel, how close they feel to you, how deep the physical, mental, and emotional connection is. There are all these different things in there. But generally, a woman stays open after her orgasm, and a man tends to close, because it's a man's energy goes out when he has an orgasm, and there's this drop, this exhaustion. And a woman often feels energized after sex. And also her system naturally will go on having orgasms if she's open, whereas a man will have the one, which is the main one, and then maybe another and another, depending on how strong the connection is. But usually we'll say there's the one, then the energy withdraws. So the woman stays open, and she can have more orgasms. If you're, okay, let's talk about that for a minute. You see, what often happens is you get attracted to each other like a burning desire. And then you have the sex, and then you look at the person and suddenly, did I really go to bed with this person? The desire burns away, and then you say, well, I don't have anything in common with this person. Well, you don't after the desire's gone, after the chemicals have gone. And then it's hard to connect afterwards. But if it's a loving connection and a caring connection, then a woman wants to go on being close and touched and stay in contact. So again, very generalizing, with a male energy, it's out, it's forceful, it's over. With a woman's energy, it's sort of open and receptive and goes on. Let's go on from there about what Kamdaya was talking about, men having their orgasms very quickly. The more sensitive a man is, then the quicker he's likely to have an orgasm. And the orgasm is not only through touching, it's also through the mind. The man's sexual energy works through the mind very strongly. So when he gets aroused, then the orgasm can come very quickly. When you as a woman turn on, even if you're not touching him, he can start to have an orgasm. I can feel an orgasm, or I can feel that sexual energy very strongly when my beloved is with somebody else, even if she's miles away. I can feel it happening inside this system, and we all can. So when you're close to somebody and you start to have that energy, that was happening just recently. There were 4 of us together, and Grace was with somebody else, and they were in quite a strong energy and I wasn't. But every time Grace got into the strong energy, it affected me, and I was with somebody else very quietly and gently, but my energy started to get affected by Grace. Because that's what happens when you get close to somebody, you become interconnected with energies. So when you get turned on and excited, you affect the male energy very strongly. The male energy is also very strongly affected by demand, because the mother used to demand. So if you demand anyway, you're likely to create an ejaculation quickly if the man is sensitive. So the man is actually more sensitive than you are in his penis than you are in your vagina. So your vagina needs a lot more stimulation, generalizing, than the male does if he's open, but then it's both either way. But a male has more permission, feels more permission. And so you have to tune in to the male, and you have to start to sense when he's starting to get towards orgasm. And usually a woman doesn't do that. You see, what a woman does, she becomes... Both do this, but a woman more than a man. What happens is, when you start to get stimulated, you close your energy off from the man, and you start to build your energy for an orgasm. And you're not in touch with the man anymore. You need to open up and stay in touch, and his orgasm is part of your responsibility too. So you need to stay in touch, and when you can feel that energy coming, you need to back off, take a breath. And when I say back off, I don't just mean touching, I mean you need to let your energy drop too. Because when your energy stays up, it's stimulating the man whether you're touching him or not. So you have to be sensitive about that. And men, you have to make it very clear to your partner what your situation is. And of course, the male ego says, you know, I don't want to tell the woman that I am not adequate. Adequate, by the general standard, is you can fuck for 2 hours, pump hard fuck, and then have an orgasm when the woman has her orgasm. That's the standard that most men are trying. But those aren't sensitive men. They're men that are not very sensitive in the penis. You see, I don't know who this is and how he does this, but if you tell a man not to have an ejaculation too early, he's in a lot of trouble. To start with, he has to be given encouragement to have sex, and then at a certain point that does become more relevant, but it also happens on its own at a certain point. So what I do is I'm very, very careful not ever to stop a natural flow in somebody. And in the East they do that. But look, go to India and see these people. It's the most sexually perverted place in the world. Talk to an Indian man, and when he's talking to you, within minutes he'll be talking about sex, because that's all he ever thinks of. Because he's been told over and over sex is bad. That's all he ever thinks of. Because it's been suppressed. So first, yes, and then more sensitivity. That's how I see it. And then they're just excuses, and the world buys the excuses, and therapists buy the excuses, and you go to workshops for excuses. But the fact is, when you want to do something, you do it. If the other person wants to play. And if not, then you feel what it feels like when the other person says, I don't want to play. And that's all there is to it. That's all life is about. The rest is an excuse.